Well, hello, my name is Lori Ann Smith, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. And I just decided recently to start doing this show again. And we're looking at the Survivor to Thriver Manual workbook from ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program. And you can get this workbook, this manual, from from their website. It's free. You can download it. You can read it as a web page online if you don't want to download it, and it's free. Or you can actually pay to have it, in a physical copy of it, and they'll ship it out to you. So you can contact them at, or you can just go to their website, https colon / www.ascasupport.org, and you can get all their info from there. You can join a support group from there. Just look under the meeting listings, and all the listings will be there. I'm actually starting up my group again. It's an online group. It's a virtual group, and I had this meeting going for before my husband passed away for about a year and a half, and I did the training and everything, and it was great. Like I needed it. I enjoyed it. I was facilitating it. I couldn't find a co-facilitator, but I was just facilitating it myself, and the group participants would take, like how it works is, people take turns sharing and stuff like that. So I found it very helpful. So, you can check and see if there's a group in your area that meets in person, if you prefer that. Right now with COVID-19, I don't know how much of that's going on, but there are virtual groups on there listed there. You can find one that works for you. I'm starting mine back up. Right now it's listed on their website as a proposed group because I need participants to have a group, but if you think you need something, a different person or whatever, you can get a hold of somebody on that website. They'll help you find a group that works for you if you're interested in that. So you can just go to their website, ascasupport.org, and look for that information there. So we're just reading through this manual. I'm just taking a look at it so people will kind of be able to see what it's all about. I started using this manual when I began my healing journey way back in 2009. I found it very helpful, and I kind of keep referring back to it, actually. So, if I'm thinking about something or remembering parts of that manual that were really helpful for me, I'll go back and reread it, go through the questions again and stuff. So it's been a useful tool for me. And so that's kind of why I'm doing this. So this is what we're working on now. And hopefully it's helpful for you too. Right? So we left off the last show. If you want to catch that, if you go to my playlists, you can see the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. And there's only a couple of videos. This is just like the third one or something. You can go through and watch those if you're just, want to sort of see what we were talking about. But we're looking at section, it's just the beginning of this, actually, of this manual. And we're looking at the safety first section. And last time we covered assessing your current safety level. And they always suggest that people do this. It's actually really important because you want to make sure you're safe enough to be doing this kind of work, right? If you're a survivor of abuse and you're just starting your healing journey, you need to make sure you're safe enough, in a safe enough place in your own life, that you can handle this stuff. You're not going to, regress in your healing journey, that you maybe have made some progress, or that you're not going to hurt yourself, not going to hurt somebody else because of the trauma revisiting stuff, from the past, right? So you need to make sure you're safe enough to do this work. It is very important. They suggest that at all times to make sure you're safe enough to begin something like this. If not, if you have a therapist or a counselor, you can always talk to them and, see what they think. They can give you some pointers, and they can kind of check with you to see how you're doing, how you're progressing on your healing journey. And if you don't have like a counselor or a therapist or whatever, you could always just talk to some sort of like people from the ASCA support. Just give them a call and talk to them. They'd be able to sort of help you decide whether or not you really are ready for something like this, because this stuff is very difficult. Looking back at the abuse, the memories, they're very painful. They can trigger a lot of emotional responses that are really hard to keep under control, And if we've ever had any, like, PTSD, or if a person does have PTSD or anxiety issues or depression, things like this, it can kind of make that worse. You know what I mean? So that's why it's so important to do the safety first. I know it sounds pretty redundant, like it's like, you know, I've said it like 5,000 times, but the thing is I'm being serious. Like it really is important. So that's why they really put it in the forefront. It's the very first part of their book is the safety first chapter. The meetings are run like that too, and the meetings are very safe. They actually have guidelines in place to make sure that people, survivors of abuse that are attending these groups, do not become re-wounded, re-victimized by somebody in the group. This is just not allowed. So they're very safe, and that's why I like the ASCA. That's what I was talking about in the last show. And so we're just going to get right back into this. And I'm reading from, if you go there and you download that, or you just read it as a web page, I'm looking at page 19. This is assessing your current safety level. We went through that last time, the first part of it, the safety checklist. And next up, they said recommendations. Let this checklist tell you what you must do to lower your risk level and create more safety in your life. Some of the situations, such as that posed in question 8 concerning firearms or dangerous weapons. And question 8 was, is there a firearm or potentially a dangerous weapon at your residence? So they said, question 8 concerning firearms or dangerous weapons can be resolved easily. Remove the firearm or weapon from your residence. With other situations, such as past victimization, there is little you can do except to make every effort to prevent a reoccurrence. In most of the other questions, the issues are somewhat complicated but not unsolvable. You can, and they said, should seek professional help if you lose sense of time or of yourself or have impulses to harm yourself. If you are being threatened or abused by someone close to you, you need to take steps to protect yourself and to make the threats or abuse stop. So even if this means ending the relationship. So if you are unsure as how to address any of these questions, then you need help to figure out how to create safety first. So this is very important. We want to be in a safe place. We don't want to be re-victimized, right? And oh, hi Susan, how are you? I hope you're well. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I did those to, for a few reasons, and one was to just for public information, how hard it is for children growing up abused and what they have to go through, and I really wanted people to know the truth, and so they are pretty, they're pretty raw, pretty graphic, but I kind of went back and allowed myself to be that child at that time. And it was hard to do. I found it very triggering. That's why I kind of rushed through them. I wanted to get it done. But thank you very much. I hope they're helpful. And also for validation for survivors, so they're not alone and that you didn't deserve any of that. No child should ever be abused. There's no excuse for abuse. And so I hope they're helpful for people. So thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words. It's very nice. And it's just so hard for people. I know there's so many of us out here. So many will not get help. And, I didn't start reaching out, like I said, till the age of 42. So many times people do, it sort of happens that the brain releases or allows or whatever the issue is, survivors of abuse to start to remember the abuse and to really, it sort of almost starts to become too much to handle in their 50s and 60s. So, 60-year-olds going through this, right? It hit me at 42. So that's when I realized I needed help. And I was like, I just can't keep going like this. So, it's very difficult. And that's why I like to be an encouragement for people. It's like, just so you don't suffer on your own, struggle on your own is terrible. So they do have a suicide harmful behavior checklist. This is on page 20. The first part was the safety checklist. That's the one that we went through last time on the last show, on the last video there. This next one is suicidal harmful behavior checklist. And I'm telling you, I had suicidal ideation for many years, actually, probably from about the age of 10 through my whole life until 42. So that's a long time to be dealing with suicidal ideation. And but my family was suicidal. So I'm not surprised that I had that. My mom was suicidal. My mom had suicidal ideation. She didn't try to kill herself. She had suicidal ideation. My dad was suicidal. He literally would try to kill himself. And one of my brothers committed suicide. And then a few years later, another brother committed suicide. I've talked about this on many shows. And so I had suicidal ideation for many years. And, you know, it's been tough. It's a hard road. So I always tell people, if you can't cope, if you don't think you're going to make it through the next 2 seconds, you call a crisis line. There's people sitting out there on those crisis lines who are survivors themselves who understand what this stuff is all about. And they're not even really, a lot of them getting paid, or if they're getting paid, it's not very much. A lot of them are volunteer. They're doing it because they want to help you to get better. They want to help people like me to stick it out, get help. And I'm kind of living proof. I'm one of these people that's kind of like living proof that it's worth it. It really is. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I didn't take my life, and I'm thankful now, right? And so this is the issue. Life, for me isn't what it was. I was in such a bad place, so I'm not there anymore. That's why I'm doing these shows, because I want people to know, you didn't deserve that, and to allow what happened to us to be to be what makes us not want to live so many times. That to me is losing the battle, because then the abusers win. To me, that's just horrible. That's what happened with my brothers. That's why I was just like devastated that two of my brothers killed themselves, and nobody cared about them. Well, I did, you know, but you have to care about yourself. And I decided, like, at the age of 42, I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna win this battle. I'm gonna win this fight. My abusers are not gonna win. I win because I stay alive. I'm getting help and I'm doing quite well, and I'm enjoying life. So this is a big. I'm happy, but the thing is this is a big issue. I wasn't for many, many years. You know what I mean? I was in such a bad place. So I know what it's like to be there. And that's why I keep saying it. You know what I mean? It's a little redundant because I almost say it on every video. But that's because I never know who's going to watch one and then not watch the others. I decided to put it on all of them pretty much. And just in case somebody would catches one of my videos, then they'll hear that from me, because I care. There's not very, I mean, if you don't have somebody in your life that cares, well, I do. I honestly do, because none of us deserve that. We all deserve to get help and to work towards a meaningful, better life. It's just so important. So we're going to pick up with this section. It is dealing with suicide. So if you think this topic's going to bother you, please don't watch the show, because it's really, if you're not prepared and handled to think about suicide, especially 9 o'clock in the morning. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here for me. Then you don't want to watch the show. You can always come back and watch it another time if you're feeling stronger. I'd say that with any of my shows. I actually put like warnings on my shows because, if you're a survivor of abuse, you don't want to be triggered and you don't want to go backward in your healing journey. Make sure you're safe enough and strong enough to be, thinking about this material, right? So because this is a serious topic, and it's important to know where you're at, sort of how you're feeling. You're feeling strong enough. Is it going to bother you and cause you to, hurt yourself, hurt somebody else? Then you seriously don't want to do that. So, we're talking about suicide, harmful behavior, right? So that's what we're doing. This is on page 20 of their workbook, and they ask you these questions. There's 7 of them. I actually went through this book and actually did the actual work on it in 2009, 2010. And I literally had printed it off and went through and checked all the stuff off and wrote the questions out. I mean, I did the whole thing. It was very helpful for me. And I joined some groups, some online support groups. I was belonging to 2 at the time, and it was very helpful. But it's not for everybody. And people are different. And, some people would prefer to just do one-on-one with a, counseling therapist and keep it that way. And that's worked for them. So that's why I say, this stuff, it's not for everybody. Some people would prefer a counselor therapist situation, or maybe need that. And then for others, they prefer a therapist or a group support. So it's kind of whatever you need. I actually went through this stuff on my own first. And then I started to realize, well, I could join a support group. I could start getting help. And it was very, very helpful. So we're going to check that out. And their questions are, excuse me, so we would answer. This is how we could find out how we're doing, if we're safe enough to start our healing journey, right? Because these are really serious questions. And if you score, high, then they tell you really need to seek a professional. You need to seek somebody to help you out, because these are serious questions here. And if we answer them honestly, it'll give us an honest, assessment of where we're at, right? So suicidal harmful behavior. Check yes or no for each question. Number one, do you feel chronically depressed? And that's not depressed once in a while. That's like chronically depressed. Someone um, who suffers from depression, chronically, and that's a serious issue. My mom was chronically depressed. My brother was too. Um, I would say no. I do have little bouts of depression. They don't last. They don't ever last more than a few days, and then I can pull myself out of it. But I have little bouts with depression. So I wouldn't say it's too high of chronic. It might be might be considered chronic, um, but it's doable for me because I never stay there. I will go and sometimes drop down into a little bit of a depression, but I know how to pull myself out, and so um, some people can't pull themselves out of a depression. I know people, survivors. I have friends who are survivors, lots and lots of survivor friends actually, and some of them just can't pull themselves out of the depression. They have to go seek treatment, and that's important. Absolutely, it is. And I always encourage them, just to keep going and hope for a better day. So that's a question we can answer. Do you feel chronically depressed? Number two, do you have recurring thoughts of killing yourself? That's suicide. Recurring thoughts. That was my issue. I had to answer yes, because I did have recurring thoughts of suicide for many years. It all, I wouldn't think about it every day, but I'd hit a low point, and then all of a sudden I'm right back into the whole, suicidal ideation thing. And I mean, I did this for years, years and years. And that's what brought me to at the age of 42, I was like, how long do I have to keep doing this? I obviously need help. Regular people who have regular, normal, good, decent lives don't sit around thinking about killing themselves all the time. I need help. And I started to realize, like, why am I doing this? This was done to me. I need, I shouldn't be having to pay the price for what somebody did to me. I need to get help. You know what I mean? So I recognized it, but it took me to the age of 42 to do something about it, and to realize how really how horrible that was, right? So I answered yes to that. Now, would I answer yes to that? I would say no, because I've gotten a lot of help along the way. I've done a lot of work on this stuff. Number three, do you have a specific plan to kill yourself? And I mean, at the time when I was doing this workbook, I would have said yes. But now I would say no. So this is the thing. Life has gotten in 14 years. It's been quite a few years now. I started really in 2007. I began my healing journey, but since 2009, that's a lot of years of working through this stuff, and I've made a lot of progress. Let me tell you. So I would say that I would answer no. Says, question 4, have you acquired the means to kill yourself, such as a supply of pills or a gun? Like, do we actually have the stuff that we were planning on using? I mean, I would say no. These are really, people would be kind of horrified by these questions, most people, but survivors of abuse, who have contemplated suicide, this is all kind of the norm, right? It's really sad. My sister was suicidal. She had a gun and she used to disappear for days, like I was saying. And we just thought, well, one of these days she's going to do it. We're going to get a call that she's killed herself. 2 of my brothers killed themselves. One from hanging, and one from overdose. So, and he was a pill popper, and he was always overdosing, but he finally made it out. And on his birthday at a shelter. So that's why I know it was suicide. So this is the sad thing. It's very, very sad. It says, number 5, do you intend to carry out this plan to kill yourself with a specified time frame? For me, I mean, even when I was first answering this book, I said no. And that was true. I didn't really have a time frame or anything. It wasn't that set in stone. But the thing is at the age of 42, sitting on the couch, I definitely had a time frame. And several times before that. So, I mean, I would say no, now. And even when I was doing this book, I was determined to stay alive. So I answered no to that as well. But I had in the past done that. So, such a sad situation. This is number 6. Do you have thoughts of actually killing or harming others? And it's a big deal, right? I answered no to that because I've never wanted to hurt anybody. I never wanted to be that kind of person. You know what I mean? To be a hurtful person that would just hurt somebody else or kill somebody else. It was never in my mind to do that, you know, because I see so much suffering around the world, you know, and I just think this is horrible. Why are people doing this to each other? One of my brothers was murdered, and it's like, you know, when I was a little kid, I actually did have plans to go, and when I got older, was going to find that person and kill them. I was about, you know, I was 7 years old, right? So probably from 7 to 10, that was in my mind that I would find this person, I would kill them. Kind of kept that. It was in the back of my mind all the time, but then after a while, I just let it go. I'm like, what's the point? You know what I mean? That person's either dead or maybe they're in prison already for something else, or you know, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, just let it go. You know, there's nothing we can do. So no, I don't go. I really didn't have the intent to hurt other people or to hurt somebody else, because I know it's such a horrific thing for people to hurt somebody else. I didn't like being abused. I didn't like being, you know, my life being threatened. So this is the issue. I never wanted to be one of those types, right? So, but we have to answer these questions. It's very important to answer those questions honestly, right? Number 7, if yes, have you made specific plans or arrangements for this to occur and to actually, you know, harm somebody else or kill somebody else, right? So I would say no, but you know, we have to answer them honestly, right? So scoring, if you've answered yes to any of the above questions, your harmful behavior risk level is high. So if we answered yes to any of those, it's high. And so, I mean, at the time when I first started doing this book, I had answered yes to a few of them. So I was like, okay, so my risk level is high. We have to be careful. And, you know, if we're feeling like, you know, looking at some of this material or watching some of these videos or, and, you know, whatever, and all of a sudden we're feeling upset and anxious and starts to take us back into a bad place, you know, from the abuse that we don't want to go. You know, right there that that's a warning sign. You need to stop watching that. It's not going to be good for you to watch. You need to get some help, you know, and have, whether it's a friend or if you have a counselor therapist, you know, that's the time you got to reach out, you know, and just let them know, you know, I'm triggered. I need help, you know. Oh, hi, good morning. Hi, Robin. Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate this. I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate your support. You know, I've done a lot of this work, actually all of it, mostly for years by myself. But I really just wanted to reach people. That was my big thing. And I kind of went everywhere, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio. I mean, wherever I could find basically a free or really inexpensive account to put this stuff on. And I thought, well, you know, most of them charge money now, and I'm, you know, relatively broke. So I have to do everything for free. So this is free. StreamYard's free to use, and putting it on YouTube's free. So it's all good. It's like I'll do it on video now. But you know, I just wanted to reach people because I know people are suffering and struggling, and it's so hard. Sometimes in people's, you know, people in different areas don't have support groups. Certain towns, small rural areas don't have that type of thing. Sometimes in cities there's not a support group. I know in my city there's no free support groups. You can go to you can go to a pay, you have to pay for it. You can go to support group if you pay for it. But if you don't have like $250, you know, a month or per session or whatever it works out to be, then you can't go, right? So I like online support for that reason. But you know, I just want to be a support out here for people, and you know, just a shoulder and a support, and tell people, you know, hey, you didn't deserve that, and we need to get help. That's for sure. So their recommendations for after scoring this, you know, if you're looking at the suicidal harmful behavior checklist in here, their recommendations are to get professional help immediately. They said if you do not have access to names of private therapists, you should call your county mental health services. ASCA co-secretaries may have a list of selected resources for their meetings, particular area, and you can ask for some names and telephone numbers. So you need to first lower your suicidal harmful behavior risk before attempting to initiate or continue recovering from your child abuse. The two are probably connected. That was my issue. I mean, you know, that was exactly why I was at suicidal ideation, was because the way I was abused, you know, so horrifically. So, and just watching my family just disintegrate, and it was horrible. So they said, we need help. If we scored yes to any of those questions, we need help, right? And they said that because the two are connected, right? It's very important that you concentrate first on stabilizing yourself before delving deeper into your abuse issues. And that's what I was talking about on the show. I think it was the first show. We need to first get our lives in a safe, stable situation. And that's very important because to try to do, work on our past issues, like I call it a healing journey, some people call it other things. I call it a healing journey because it sounds good and it's easier to say. Um, then, before we start doing something like that, we need to be in a stable position because if you're not in a stable environment and you still have possibly there's people around you that are abusing you as an adult, in an abusive situation, and then you're trying to work through this stuff as well on the healing journey, going back and revisiting all the pain, it's just too much. And also, I mean, just being stable in your environment, you're in a safe environment. So many people don't have that, you know, and I know that. I know all sorts. I actually have friends, who are struggling, and some of them are homeless, and some of them are, working on getting a stable place to live. And I mean, it's just horrific. My brothers were homeless for many years. All this last year, I thought I was going to be homeless because I'm not working because of COVID-19. There's very few jobs, and they're all a bit, I don't qualify. I don't have the qualifications for the ones that are out there. And then some of them I can't physically do anymore. So this is the issue. And I'm 55. Nobody wants to hire a 55-year-old. They're like, I can go get a 30-year-old who has a university degree. Why would I want you, 55-year-old woman, hanging around here? You know what I mean? So it's kind of sad. It really is. I even applied to be a Walmart greeter because I thought I'd be a good Walmart greeter because I'd be friendly and helpful. They wouldn't even hire me. I'm like, So this is the issue. I have a pretty decent resume. So it just tells you, it's just hard right now for so many people, and so many people are losing their homes, losing their jobs, losing everything, right? And I'm just renting here, but I'm just thankful every day. I'm like so thankful, I've got a safe place, right? Because I know what it's like to not have a safe place in my youth, and it's horrific. And then through my 20s, just kind of bouncing around. Um, Late 20s. And then in my 30s, it kind of my life started to get better. But this is the issue. There's always been an issue with jobs. Jobs are not easy to keep. And so many people do struggle. So that's why it's so important to get those physical surroundings of our life, our where we're living, the people who are around us, what we're actually doing. Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we using drugs? Are we drinking? What are we doing? Like we need to get all that stuff in place before we can start looking at our past wounds, because it's just going to be way too much to try to be dealing with this unsafe, kind of unhealthy environment and looking at the abuse. Not a good idea, So that's why I say they always say to get your physical surroundings and your life in a better, safer, more stable position before you start doing something like this. Very, very important because this stuff is, for most people, very hard. You know? So I agree with it. I totally agree with what they're saying there. They said discuss your answers to these questions with your therapist so that your therapist can make your personal safety and the safety of others the primary focus in your therapy until you have stabilized yourself and you feel you're ready to commence or continue your recovery efforts. So they said, this is page 21. They said, you should know that your therapist has certain legal and ethical obligations to warn potential victims and in some cases to notify the police if he or she reasonably believes that you are suicidal or homicidal or likely to harm another person. Although this may mean breaking the confidential relationship between the two of you, your therapist is mandated by law to do this and cannot be sanctioned for doing so. So this is discussed in greater detail in chapter 5 in connection with step 14. So the next section up is creating your plan for safety first. Awareness, assessment, and action. Yeah, this chapter is lengthy, the safety first chapter, but that's how important they really, it's kind of like high importance. It's the first chapter that tells you how important it is because they want people to read that first before they start doing this stuff because it is very, very hard. And if you're doing it on your own and you like I said, let's say you have this workbook and you're going to go through and start doing this stuff, If you're doing it on your own, you need to be really sure that you're able to handle this stuff, because it can trigger you, and bring back memories that maybe you hadn't thought about, and all of a sudden it's a crisis. You're having a breakdown, or I'm having a breakdown, and so sometimes they say, have somebody with you, like a support person. If you have a good friend or a support buddy or a partner or somebody in your life who's trustworthy and really helpful to you and cares about you, is going to help you to make the best decisions for yourself. Um, it's you could maybe ask if they would go through it with you, just to sit with you when you do it, because that way, if you do run into something that just triggers you and you go backward and just in your healing, you start feeling like regressing and you can't handle the emotions, and they can help you, right? So that's what they do say is have a support buddy if you can, instead of doing it on your own. I was doing it on my own, but at the time that I was doing it on my own, I felt safe enough to do it. So this is the issue. I knew I wasn't gonna harm myself. I wasn't gonna commit suicide. I wasn't gonna harm somebody else. I wasn't gonna harm myself. So I was very aware of how I was feeling. And but if you're not sure, you need to make sure. Be really careful. So awareness, assessment, and action is the next one. Page 22. Your safety first plan starts with 3 parts: awareness, assessment, action. Ensuring your safety first requires that you be aware of situations that present danger or risk, both to yourself in terms of the degree of the risk you can tolerate, and to others in the event that you have thoughts of killing or harming another person. They said that you take appropriate steps to protect both yourselves and others. Once you've identified dangers and risks and recognized these signals from your body and mind, that your body and mind send out in response to these stimuli, you need to assess why these signals are being triggered. So, what in your current environment is triggering or is bringing these responses to the foreground? After connecting the cause, the triggering event, the sign or behavior, with the effect, the signal or response, you will need to take action in a way that restores a sense of safety both for you and others around you. So, having this structure in mind and readily accessible as you live your daily life is essential to understanding and interrupting the destructive patterns of the past and replacing them with more healthy patterns. Remember that breaking the old habits based on unconscious scripts linked to your abuse means overcoming the tendency to do the same old familiar thing. So at first it takes more energy to change, but it gets easier with practice and success. And this is so true. I had this happen to me because I wasn't aware of a lot of, well, obviously, I grew up in a toxic, dysfunctional, abusive environment. So I wasn't even aware of some of the things that I was doing, that were repeated kind of habit type stuff, that I was doing to myself were, self-sabotage. And, especially dealing with relationships with people. And I really had no idea that I was even doing that. It was just a self-protective measure, but it had been ingrained in me from being, from a young child. And so I didn't recognize it. And so I had a coach one time, like a job coach, sort of point out some things to me. And I was like, wow, well, I had no idea, and I had no clue that that's why I was doing what I was doing. It was just natural for me because it was a natural response to what I do to protect myself, right? And so sometimes, we don't recognize these things, right? And we once somebody points it out, or we might recognize it later while we're doing the workbook. That did happen while I was working on the workbook, actually, many times. And I'd be like, oh, that's why I'm doing that. Okay, I see. Then we can work to change it, right? And it doesn't happen, like I said, it really doesn't happen overnight, because I really wish it did, because then you could just, go to snap your fingers, go to bed one night and wake up the next day and everybody, it's fine. Life is great. We're wonderful. Unfortunately for most people, and maybe there's some that have happened that way, but not for me. It took me time to work on this stuff, a lot of time. And, what I say is wasted time, like I'd say, no, not at all. Because, I work, I'm a normally working busy person. I used to work like most people, 8 hours a day. I had a husband to care for because he was terminally ill. I'd be kind of busy, you know what I mean? So I would work on this stuff when I could, and generally in the evenings or whatever. And I'd do the shows in the morning, and then I'd do the work in the evening, and go through and read and sort of study this stuff out, and see how I'm feeling, journal, Write down, how I'm feeling, let it come out. Talking did a lot of help. It did help me out. So lots of things that I did to try to help myself. But a lot of the stuff I didn't recognize until I saw it, and then I'd have to work on changing it. So, like I said in one of my shows, I'd have sticky notes everywhere for certain things, and just reminders for myself. Okay, I see what I'm doing. So I kind of still have some issues with that, and I still work on some things. Like I was saying, it's not easy to remember to, oh, okay, don't do that again, because that's that old behavior that I was using to protect myself, but now I don't need to do that. It doesn't work anymore in my adult life. It did back then. It was quite useful when I was young and being abused, but now it's like, no, okay, that doesn't work anymore. It's derogatory and actually goes against me having a good life. You know what I mean? So, for instance, running, running, always running. But that was me. I mean, I didn't really start running until I was like 30, but then I just ran from everything. Relationships, jobs, didn't matter. Just run, run, run. And, didn't realize I was doing it. I didn't even realize it. I had a job coach tell me, because I told her I'd been abused, and she was like, "Well, you can keep running if you want to, or you can face this stuff and realize that you have rights. You have rights, and you can stand up for yourself. You're no longer You're no longer that abused child. You're an adult. You have rights. You have choices you can make. You can have a good life." And I'm like, that makes good sense. You know what I mean? But I didn't realize I was doing it, say, so until somebody pointed it out. I had no idea. So this is the thing. Um, Sometimes, we don't see this stuff until later, and it's like, oh, wow, okay. It's really, really difficult. Let's put it that way. Awareness, they say, awareness, write down as many physical, emotional, or intuitive signs as you can that tell you, excuse me, that your safety might be in question. For example, your heart beats faster or you sense a clutching sensation in your throat. So it says write down as many physical, emotional, or intuitive signs as you can that tell you that your safety might be in question. Your heart beats faster or you sense a clutching sensation in your throat. So those are things we can write down. That's anything that would cause us, like if we're feeling unsafe, how do we feel emotionally, physically, intuitively? Do I need to close off? Do I need to, whatever it is, roll up in a ball and curl up and protect myself, or any number of things, even intuitively shut people out. That was one of my things. Somebody gets too close to me, I just put up my wall. My wall goes up. It's like, okay. And, you know, physical touch, somebody try to touch me, even just, be nice, right? Some people, just come up and kind of put their arm around you. That was not a good thing for me. It's like, I was like, okay, as I'm a big lady, actually, I'm 5'7", I'm quite tall. And, somebody comes up, put their arm around me, I'm like, you don't know who you're messing with, man. You got to be careful doing stuff like that. I really didn't like people touching me, and I kind of still don't. I don't like people coming up putting their hands on me in any shape or form unless I'm kind of initiating the hug myself, if I want to hug a friend or like my husband, you know what I mean? But when I don't know somebody that well, it's just somebody that I just like an acquaintance or whatever, and they come up and they're like, oh, hi, and they put their arm on me, immediately I tense up, my, my body becomes upset. My heart starts just to beat, and my reaction is one of fear. It's kind of like, back off, right? And they're just trying to be nice. So this is the issue. This is the stuff that we can assess to see how we actually feel, physically, emotionally, intuitively, signs that tell us that our safety might be in question, right? So it's kind of gives us an idea of how we're feeling, right? It says if you need more space, use additional sheets of paper, keep them with your manual. So assessment, write down what you think might trigger or typically trigger these reactions to certain situations. For example, triggers can be either internal, which for example would be unconscious memories, dreams, or fears, or external. For example, interactions with certain people or particular types of activities or experiences. Remember that everyone has difficulty with certain kinds of situations, though the nature of the situations varies with each individual. So if you can, you should try to focus on the types of situations that you perceive to be related to your abuse or abusers, because that's what we're dealing with now. So triggers, we can think about what might typically trigger these reactions. So for instance, if I'm feeling I need to, you know, close off, or I'm feeling nervous in a certain situation, I can see why. I can look and see why I'm being triggered. Is that person too close to me? Is that person touching me? That was an issue, like I was just talking about. Is that someone touching me and I'm uncomfortable with that? What's the trigger? So we can start to. This is how you get in touch with what's going on with you. You know what I mean? I can do this work and find out what's going on with me by writing this stuff down and start taking a look at it. And basically that's exactly what it is. It's doing the work, you know. And like I said, it's not easy. They said if you need more space, use additional sheets of paper or whatever. You could just do a journal with this if you wanted to. I actually used this actual workbook. I printed it off and I just used the actual workbook. So, but if you could always just, if you didn't want to print it off, you could just write it out in a journal type thing or whatever. Keep it private. Keep it safe. Definitely keep your information safe. Action, write down all of the actions you can think of to help you restabilize yourself after feeling unsafe. So some of these actions will be obvious and practical, such as simply leaving the environment that's causing the danger. Other actions must be tailored to your unique needs based on the type of abuse you suffered. So try to develop a range of options that will serve you in a variety of situations. So write down actions you can think of to help you restabilize yourself after feeling unsafe. So let's say somebody comes up, and because I was using me as an example, and someone I work with or whatever, let's say at work, is a nice person, I don't even think anything bad about them at all, but they come up and they touch me from behind, catch me off guard, what then caused me some internal grief, because it's that whole fight or flight situation, you know what I mean, from being abused. I don't think anything bad about them because they did be nice and try to pat me on the back or something, you know what I mean? They were just trying to be nice. But then, of course, it's caused me to be upset. So then what can I do to help myself get through that? Basically, what I started to do, because when I was younger, I really didn't like it. Didn't even know how to handle it. But as an older adult, I know lots of people will do that, just come up and do stuff like that. And that was a trigger for me, for sure. And so, I would just do some breathing. Breathing work's very important. So I would just calm myself down by breathing and realizing that I'm in the here and now. I'm not being abused anymore. This is not my past. This is the present. This is a coworker or whoever who just wanted to be nice and give me a pat on the back. It's not abuse. And then I calm down and I realize that I'm in a safe place right here, right now. I used to do stuff like I would feel my feet on the floor because I used to have flashbacks, a lot of flashbacks to the abuse. And I would feel my feet on the floor and I would say, I wouldn't say it out loud, but I'd be internally going through this stuff. I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel myself sitting in this chair. I can feel my arms on the armrest. I could hear the sounds around me. And sometimes I would look for a certain color in the room. Like I would just pick a color because I got this off of a website. Pick a color in your whatever color, orange, blue, whatever, green. Pick any color and find those colors in the actual room you're in. So I would just look for all the blue objects or whatever. Okay, there's a blue there, blue, because that takes your mind off of the panic. It puts you in the present, in the now, taking your mind off of the past and the trigger, or the flashback, or the trigger, whatever's happening. And I would just do this, and all of a sudden I'm back in my physical space, feeling my feet on the floor, looking at blue objects. So that was very helpful for me. And I didn't learn that by myself. I didn't come up with that and create that. I got all those things off of, really, actually, one of the websites was very helpful for me, and I actually shared that information on my shows, and as well just posted it everywhere. Was it's called Child Abuse Survivor Monument. It's a Canadian guy. He's a psychotherapist, sculptor. He's a survivor of abuse, and he has a website that was very helpful for me for that sort of thing. or trigger how to get through and deal with things that have triggered us, flashbacks, this kind of stuff. He had some wonderful ideas there. He also had some great ideas for self-care, which really, really helped me out. I actually need to go back now because it's been quite a few years, and look at that information again and use some of it because it is really, really helpful. They're very therapeutic, and it's for men and women. None of this stuff is just for women or just for men. It's for anybody, and just so helpful, you know. And some people would say, "Well, I don't know how that could be helpful," you know, to some of this stuff, you know. But actually, you have to find what works for you, you know. Some people like music, soothing music. Some people like to journal, like I said. Some people, you know, like to draw or whatever it is, you know. Um, just whatever works for you, right? Because that's the issue. We're all different, right? So we all need different things. So what works for me may not work for you. What worked for somebody else doesn't work for me, you know. So we're all different. We need to find what works for us, you know, to help us to get through this stuff, right? So important. So that's the action part. And write down all of the actions you can think of to help you restabilize yourself after feeling unsafe. And some of these actions will be obvious and practical, such as simply leaving the environment that is causing the danger, getting out of that situation. Other actions must be tailored to your unique needs, see, based on the type of abuse you suffered. Right? So try to develop a range of options that will serve you in a variety of situations. So it's very cool. And the next section up is building your support system. Many survivors feel that they have few friends they can talk to or get support from regarding their recovery. It is important not to try to recover in a vacuum. You do need help from like-minded and empathetic survivors and trained professionals. The ASCA program encourages combined use of professional therapy and self-help for optimum recovery. We do not share the anti-professional stance of some self-help programs. Learning to trust others and to turn to them for support is a critical step in recovery. Doing so challenges one of the basic notions that arises from a history of abuse, namely that people are dangerous. And we abuse survivors know that all, you know, all too well, unfortunately. And hi, Cynthia. Hello. And I hope your day is going well. And so, yeah, we of all people who, people who've been abused know that for a fact, that people are dangerous. So learning to trust others and turn to them for support is a crucial step in recovery. And this is the issue. And I knew that when I was reading through this. Like I said, I've read through this book many times, and not just once. Like I've read through it several times. It's a lengthy book. Like, I mean, seriously, it's this workbook manual is 115 pages. Some sections will apply more than others. You know what I mean? Because it depends on on what you suffered in your abuse. You know, whether it was physical or if it wasn't physical, it was more emotional. Then the physical stuff won't really. It's not necessarily going to be what you even need to be looking at. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, or the sexual abuse, if you were not abused sexually as a child, then you don't have to worry about that section because it's not going to necessarily, it's not pertaining to what you went through, or if somebody was sexually abused but not emotionally abused, you know what I mean? Even though all that kind of does go together. Physical abuse, sexual abuse does cause it is emotional abuse. So it's kind of those actually intertwine. But some people, I know lots of survivors, like I said, and I know survivors who were emotionally abused who were not physically abused, or they were psychologically abused and not sexually abused. See, so somebody who was in that situation wouldn't need to look at the sexual abuse material because they don't have to heal from that. You know what I mean? They weren't sexually abused. So this is where you have to make the choice, of what you need. And then when you're looking through this book, you can look at the front where the index is. It tells you where all the chapters are. And you can skip chapters that don't pertain to you. You don't have to go through all of it. Right? The reason I went through all of it is because I was abused in every way, you know, emotionally, psychologically, physically, sexually, spiritually. I say spiritually because it was spiritual abuse as well. And so really, basically, I was abused in every way as a child. So I needed this whole book, but not everybody does. And you need to pick the parts out that, if you were going to go through this Survivor to Thrive manual, you don't have to go through the whole thing because they're, you know, if you, like I said, if you weren't sexually abused, you don't need to worry about that. You know what I mean? You don't have to heal from it, so you don't have to do that work, right? So you got to go through and find out what chapters actually pertain to you and what might be helpful, right? And that's important. The next part up is identifying your support network. In the space below, list everyone you can think of whom you can call on for support during times of need. So my list was actually really small when I started doing this workbook back in 2009, and it would be a lot bigger now. Let me tell you. Oh, thank you, Giselle. It's very nice. Thank you for being here. I hope your day is going well. Well, well, thank you. I love you too. I love to say that. Thank you so much. That's very nice. Just all of your comments mean so much to me, and your support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And I just wanted to help one person. I thought, if I can help one person, this would be all worth it. All of this stuff that I've done, because it wasn't necessarily about trying to gain popularity or anything. I really just wanted to help like one person. I thought, if there's one person out there that I reach that will hold on and get some help and just be encouraged and know they're not alone, and there is help out there, and we just need to look for it and not have a horrible existence. So that was the thing. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's nice. And I'm still getting to the comments. Actually, I have a lot of comments I'm still answering, and thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So my support list has grown in a big way. When I first started doing this, I mean, my husband was a big support to me. He was my best friend, my biggest supporter, actually, because he was my husband, and he really cared about what I was doing. He knew that I needed help. He really couldn't help me because he was not abused as a child. And when I started getting help, he was very happy for me, because my life changed, which helped him. His life changed, because I was getting help and I was having a better adult life, and he knew that. He could see it, and it was helpful for him because he knew I was getting help, right? Because he always felt really bad for me, and he really did. He was so supportive, like in every way. He was very level-headed. He wasn't abused as a child. He was wanted and loved, and had a great relationship with both of his parents. And so he always felt really bad for me, but he didn't know. He didn't try to help me by, oh, you should just get over it. You can get over it. He always just was very empathetic, and he would say, I don't really know what that would be like, but he says, just let me hold you. Let me just help you, whatever you need. If you need space, whatever. I mean, he was just so good for me to help me to heal. But not everybody has that. So, he passed away in 2018, so I miss him very much. But he was suffering, so I'm at peace because I didn't want him to suffer. And we all need somebody in our life, that can help us out. And that's why I did these videos, because I'm like, not everybody has somebody like that. Not everybody has somebody in their life that tells them that, you didn't deserve that. You deserve so much better, and you deserve to have a good life, a decent life where you can get help and you can actually start to enjoy life, which is what I did. And so this is the thing. I just wanted to be one more person out there. But that question, that list on so listing our actual people that we could call on for support during times of need, when I first started doing this workbook in 2009, was very small. Now it's huge. I could call so many people because of the support that I've gotten over the years from other people who are survivors. It's just amazing. And so that list would be, I mean, it's incredible the amount of people that I've met over the years who have been so helpful. Other survivors who have reached out to me. Well, I reached out first because nobody, of course, doesn't know we're suffering unless we tell them. And I started reaching out, and all these hands came back to me, and they were like, "We'll help you," And I got so much support, and a lot of these people are my best friends today. And I know I can call them at any time. And also, there's support groups. Well, thank you, Giselle. And it's so hard, right? And we know, I mean, this is not uncommon. People lose their loved ones. This is all there is to it. But it was, I had already done grief work before, working with the abuse stuff, the child abuse, grieving my past, grieving, my childhood and all that. So I was maybe a little bit more prepared than some someone else who has never done grief work when I grieved my husband. So I was in a lot better place than maybe some people might be, because I had already done grief work and understood the process of going through all that, all the steps of grief, the grief steps that you have to take. And so I was well aware of that. So I did do some more grief work, but at least I was a little more prepared for it. It's hard, right? These things are so, so hard. And, that's why I always just tell people, just hang in there, because tomorrow could be a better day. That's what I always say, because that's what I'm always looking for. And I know that it can happen. So they said, now take a thoughtful look at your list. That's the list that you create that has all of your support people on there, that people you can call even in the middle of the night. You're having a sort of a breakdown and you're not doing well. And, take a look at that list. And is it adequate for your everyday needs? Can you identify those people you could call for a routine check-in or a cup of coffee, and those you could rely on in an emergency situation? So when I started my healing journey, I actually had some people in my life that would call me um, regularly if they didn't see me online. Like when I met these people, I say 2010, a couple of these friends of mine who've been a huge part of my healing journey, Kate Mitchell is one out of Australia. She would call me literally if she didn't see me online, she would call to find out if I was okay. And she did that for probably through till 2013. Seriously, that's a good friend, let me tell you, who's watching every day to make sure that you're okay. She lives in Australia. So she would check my stuff to see where, if I was posting, if I hadn't posted, she'd give me a little bit of time, and then she'd be calling me to see how I was doing. When I wrote the book, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the Journey, that was dealing with the child sexual abuse and incest. And she called me every day when I wrote that book. So she helped me get through a lot of that stuff. And she's just been an amazing person in my life, Kate Mitchell. And I'll never forget her, for what she's done for me. I'll never forget it, because it's wonderful to have somebody care that much that they would call you from Australia every single day to check on you, right? That's awesome, you know? So I always wish that for other people too. But we don't find those friends unless we reach out. And we don't make those friends unless we learn to trust others enough to let them trust us. Because they have to learn to trust us too. It's a two-way street. It's not that some people, don't have to ever do that. That's the beauty of relationships. When you find people that you can trust, it's hard to find people you can trust. You have to be careful, when you're doing that sort of thing. But I always wanted people to trust me. I'm like, well, I want people to trust me. I work for banks and other things. I've done a lot of great things and have a trustworthy reputation. But the thing is in relationships, personal relationships, I want people to trust me, that I'm not going to hurt them. And if I do, then I'm going to make it right. I'm going to apologize. If I say something that, just came out and I didn't mean to hurt them, but it just did. And then I'm like, oh man, I got to make that right. That's the kind of people you want in your life, not the people that are going to hurt you and then just don't care. There's lots of those people. Growing up abused, that's kind of what we've had to deal with our whole life. So the thing is it's so wonderful to make some good friendships with people that really care. I find that once I started reaching out to survivors, survivor groups, people who have been abused, who've come through their healing journey or even quite a ways through it, who are making progress, I find that those are really good friends because they know how hard it is and they work overtime to be a good friend. That's why I'm always encouraging people, if you're a survivor of abuse, to reach out, get some help, and let some of these people help you, because until we do this, we're really on our own. We're really lonely. It's a terrible place to be. That's how I was dealing with this stuff on my own, suffering through, not doing well. And when I started to reach out, my life started to change. So this is why I'm always telling people, reach out and get some help. And even if you don't want to reach out publicly, you can reach out anonymously, and you can also reach out just like to a survivor group or whatever online, and anonymously. You don't even have to give your name, your real name. You can use a fake name, right? So this is just it. But yeah, whatever you do, reach out and get some help. So we're going to pick up the rest of this. The next section is page 25. We'll pick up with, there's another section, ASC colleagues. You can use the space below to write down the names and telephone numbers of ASCA participants who you feel comfortable calling for support. So this is if you joined a support group with the ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, and you actually joined one of their groups online or in person. You could write down names of and telephone numbers of people that are in that group that you feel comfortable you call for support. And many times those groups will pass a sheet around. People will take a week. They'll say, okay, 1 week, this many people will be the support people, and then they change it. And the next group is another group of people who volunteer their time, a week at a time, to be a support person if somebody needs to talk. Right, so important. So we're going to pick up with resolving abusive relationships first, and that's on page 25, and that'll be for next Tuesday. So I just wish you all the best, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I've got Laura here and Passaggio Olivello. Hello. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I hope your day is going well. And yeah, I've been on here about an hour, so I'm gonna end the show. But I just wish you a wonderful day, and or wherever you're at, wonderful night. And I hope that you just do the very best thing for yourself, and that is to be good to yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't hurt yourself. Oh no, that's okay. That's all right, Laura. I'll be doing these every Tuesday at this time at 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and the link, the show will be there. If you wanted to watch them or whatever, you can go back if you want to and look at them. But I'm going to do this every Tuesday, so if you have time and you're interested, that's when I'll be on live here. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it, and I wish you a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. If you think you can't do it, like even you don't think you can make it for another 2 minutes, it's just not, you just can't do it, because I've been there. You need to call a crisis line. I know that's what I'm going to do. If I get to the point where I can't make it, and I'm like, man, I can't do this, I know now what to do. That is to call somebody, call a crisis line, get some help, right? Do not allow your abusers to win. Do not allow this abuse to destroy you. No, because that's what they want. That's what they wanted in the first place. So that's why I'm like, no, I'm sticking it out. So I want you to do the same. So God bless you too. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. You can check my page there on the community. I've got the listing of the times I'll be on. I do some Christian stuff too. But I love doing this show because I know survivors just, there's so many of us out here. It's not even funny. It's really sad, actually. That's why I keep doing this show. So have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.